We're getting knee deep into the startup of the NFL season, aren't we? Week 2 of the exhibition season. And usually weeks 2 and 3, that's where you get the bulk of your work in as you get ready for game 1 and week 1. You start to get the roster prepared. You start to get everyone that you're going to have as 2s and 3s. You start to get rotations in order. You're really starting to get more of a sense of your roster and understanding of what you have compared to what you didn't have a year ago. Look, the great thing about the NFL is every single season, no matter who you are, no matter if you're the Chiefs, the Eagles, every year is different because this is not like your dad's NFL. The salary cap and all the movement that you have with teams nowadays compared to what you had, hell, as much as 10 years ago, it's a constant turnover. I would say that of all the sports that you have in the country, that the NFL is the biggest turnover year in and year out of any league. And I think this is what makes it competitive. I think this is what makes it interesting for the fans. You could have a shitty team like the Bears, and within 3 years, you might be in the Super Bowl. That's what makes the NFL great. They're always concerned about the crap teams. That's why they get the top picks in the draft every year. Okay? So, again, I appreciate everybody coming aboard. Thank you again. James, welcome back, man. Thank you for coming back. Appreciate it. Must be football season for you, right? Thank you, James. All good, man. So I had a chance to talk with Tracy Rocker, the Eagle D-line coach. By the way, welcome aboard, Eagle coaches and some of the personnel staff. We're hearing that the majority of you and the bulk of you guys watch our show religiously. And you guys sit in your meeting rooms sometimes watching us. That's really great to hear. We thank you. And I was talking with some folks there at the NovaCare Center, and the Eagle offense struggled versus the Cleveland Brown defense. There's very few weaknesses on that defense in Cleveland. Okay? There's very few weaknesses. And the majority of the time, great defenses are going to be ahead of offenses, no matter how good your offense is early part of the season. It's just what it is until you get a rhythm going. Being an offensive juggernaut, man, you can't just turn that switch on and off. It takes a lot of practice. You've got to get into rhythm. Eagles will be fine. But here's the problem. You can't have bad practices if you're the offensive side of the ball, if you're Philly, because you're going to be leaned on so heavily in the first quarter of the season. I would say maybe even first 2 quarters of the season. At least half the games to carry that football team until that defense is ready. Now, this is what you have with these controlled scrimmages against the Browns. What's the most notable thing that you have when you're scrimmaging the Cleveland Browns? Does anyone know? Okay. 11 goes, no one's playing. Jordan Mailata got his ass kicked. He played. Don't say nobody played to cover for weakness. It's okay. It's not. I'm going to tell you how we're going to get there. What are you talking about? Jordan Mailata was beaten like he was a turnstile. But that's okay. What do you have at disjoint practices in these controlled scrimmages? What do you have? Miles got hurt, John. What do you have? And do you guys have any idea who the Cleveland Browns are? They have arguably the first or second best offensive line coach also in the NFL in Callahan. Callahan is one of the absolutely best coaches, and there's 2 coaches in the National Football League that are the two best offensive line coaches, Stoutland and Callahan. And they're there at the NovaCare Center today. So you're going to get pretty competitive, and they're going to be working on an awful lot of stuff during the exhibition season. That's why the Browns O-line kind of got taken a little bit to task by the Eagle D-line and vice versa. They're working on a lot of new things. Different steps maybe, screen games, middle screens, short passing game. You know, it could be numerous things. But you have the two best offensive line coaches in the National Football League today facing one another. So it's going to be competitive. And I've said this before, the only thing that Cleveland Browns, and we're going to look at the Browns here in a minute, because that's your game on Thursday. I'm not starting the program out bent in any way. Not starting it out bent in any way. No, not where we are here. You've got good coaches and good players. The Browns are good. I'll say this to you. I don't believe there's a weakness on their defense. I think their linebacking core is really good. I think their front four is great. I think their secondary is really good. And now you have also Jim Schwartz as the coordinator, which means it's going to be a little bit more aggressive. That's a good football unit. The Browns can play. They got some people. They just got to go out and figure out if they're going to have more W's in the W column or going back to being the 7-10 team that they were a year ago. They got to get out there and play. And the Eagles are working on all kinds of things offensively. What makes sense for the Eagles right now? What would be the biggest weakness that the Eagles have right now? What would be their biggest weakness, you think? What would be their biggest weakness on offense? Let's go there. What would be the biggest weakness? I don't think they throw the ball enough down the field. Now, it's not their MO and it's not their identity. Okay? They threw the ball 450 times. That's not a lot in today's NFL. That's just not a lot. They play low percentage turnover football. They don't play high percentage plays. That's not what they do. They're comfortable with Jalen Hurts hanging around 22 touchdowns. As long as that number's at 6 picks, they're good with that all day, especially if he rolls up double-digit touchdowns in running. They're okay with that. By the way, I've become more of a fan of this. If Jalen Hurts gets hurt running the ball, so be it. But I'm not going to stop him from running the ball and taking away an asset that makes him an A-plus player. So I completely decided to land on this side of the aisle with this. You run that SOB until that guy's wheels fall off like he's Secretariat. I am not going to put guardrails on Jalen Hurts. Run that guy as much as you can because you know why? Here's the most important thing with Jalen Hurts and running the ball. I trust him. I wouldn't say that. If my quarterback was Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, I would not say that. I would not feel comfortable with those guys being able to protect themselves. And I would have a problem with that. Okay? But I trust Hurts. I trust him to get down. Jalen's going to run out of bounds to play another play. Allen's going to stick his head in there as Lamar is. Maybe he doesn't get up. That's not the quarterback I want. That's not good decision-making. Jalen Hurts knows he's more important to the Eagles in Week 17 than he is in Week 1. Those other guys haven't figured that out yet. And probably that's what separates them. And easily one of the reasons he has $50 million a year in the bank now. You run that guy until that guy's wheels fall off. Because in the process, he may win you a couple Super Bowls. If Jalen Hurts only plays 8 years and he lands on 2 Super Bowls and he blows his knee out, is it worth it? Yeah. 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 15 years. How about this? So if you're Michael Vick and you played all those years, was it successful? I guess if you're a Madden fan, what's the sense of playing 15 years if you don't win the ultimate prize because you thought you were saving yourself? What's the point of it? Okay. Michael Vick underachieved. As great a talent as he was, he didn't win anything. What's the point? What is the point? So, I'm thinking last night about Hurts and the running. And I used to be on that. Hey, let's see if we can have him run less. Now, and the Eagles' actions in the offseason also led me to believe that they want him to run. Or they would have drafted Bijan Robinson. Sills, do you think Hurts or Vick is a Hall of Famer? No. Watch this. Umberto, you know what sucks? Does he have Hall of Fame talent? Yes. Yes. He'll go down as one of those guys like Bo Jackson. There's not a better, I have never seen a better running back in the last 35 years than Bo Jackson. Nobody ran 3.940s at 250 pounds and had breakaway speed and power like him. Nobody. But do you know he'll never go to any Hall of Fame, baseball or football? He's the greatest back I've ever played against or seen. You can have Hall of Fame talent, but a non-Hall of Fame resume because of circumstances. Okay? Bo was exceptional. 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 So for me, run this guy. Gets hurt, it's football. He could easily get hurt just by someone rolling up on his backside and blowing his knee out. Or like Zach Wilson last year, just running out in open space and the Grim Reaper jumps off the carpet and gets you. It can happen. Okay? No doubt. So, some of the takeaways from the practice, it's a good football team. Don't be disappointed. It happens. Hey, Jordan Mailata getting beat. Here's the difference with this year versus last. What's going to be the difference this year for the Eagles compared to last year? Supposedly, the way people were talking, the Browns probably could have had 10 sacks in that game or in those controlled scrimmages. They could have had 10 sacks. What's the difference this year? What's the difference? I'm going to make another point to you here in a minute, too, about those new coordinators. Then we're going to get into the topics. What's the difference? The difference this year, they've got game tape on you. So you've got to elevate and continue to expand your game. That's why the Eagles are working on other things. These coordinators now have tape on Hurts. You can't do the same shit you did last year because they're too good. They're too smart. There's too much good personnel. You're not going to have the same success if you just stay stagnant and not try to elevate your game. And by elevating your game is working on all the things. Horrible screen game last year, right? Not really anything on him. The Eagles just didn't do it. Work on the screen game. Tom Brady made a Hall of Fame career out of checkdowns. The Eagles are not a checkdown team. Not that you want one, but you want to have an option. Add that to the team. My God almighty, that's why I said earlier today when I went on Sports Take, if you get Swift in a checkdown game, man, I don't know. How do you defend that? The only way you're going to be able to defend the Eagles is if the Eagles have injuries. Swift, Goddard. By the way, you want to hear something great? that came off the Eagle practice against the Browns, they had no answer for Dallas Goedert. They had no answer for him. They couldn't cover him. Every single time he had a block and release, they could not cover him. That's great to hear, because that means they're covering the Y and Z. They're looking at the back, and Goddard's running up the seam. Can't cover everybody. Can't cover everybody. That's great to hear. They said they struggled, the Browns did, on covering him. They had no answer for him. Okay, no answer for Dallas Goedert. By the way, Dave Wanstadt's going to join us at 4:30 Eastern time. He's the man that recruited and developed Aaron Donald at Pitt. He also recruited Cortez Kennedy, Russell Maryland. I played for him. Jerome Brown played for him. This man knows what a defensive tackle looks like. Recruited Tony Casillas, and he's going to tell you the intangibles that you need to have to play defensive tackle. We've been talking about Jordan Davis, and I'm going to get to him here in a second before we get to the Browns here. So you're practicing against a really good football team. Really a great football team. 11 goes like this: practice, who cares? Keep that attitude up with all your new faces on defense, and you'll get your asses pushed in against New England. You keep that attitude up. Do you think that people practice for shits and giggles, just to shits and giggles practice? Why do you think they do it? Why do it if it doesn't mean anything? Why do it if it doesn't mean anything? You know, the most idiotic thing I hear people say, well, it's only practice. Then why do it? Then why give a max effort? Then why hone your skills? Then why should Jalen Hurts work hard then? Why should he prepare himself then? If you're a guy like 11, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit about preparing yourself properly? Communication. Identifying. Who cares? That's the attitude that gets your ass beat. That's the attitude that gets your faces kicked in or upset in a game you should win. You practice for perfection. Trying to do it every single day so it becomes common practice for you without even having your eyes open. That's why you do it. You want to get your team in a rhythm. People who say it's only practice, it's why Iverson never lived up to his full potential. And as many of you know, I'm an Iverson guy. Okay? It's the reason Shaq wasn't the greatest and most dominant player of all time. Practice makes perfect. Being perfect takes practice. Remember that. In anything you do in your life. Okay? Philly goes, players aren't going to bust their ass in a controlled scrimmage. Oh, so you think that's what Jordan Mailata did? He wanted to be embarrassed 6 times by Myles Garrett getting run around like that, and you think he feels good about himself? Then he just so according to what's his name, Myles Garrett busts his ass beating him in a pass rushing drill, and he thinks Jordan Mailata just went in and had a soda and a sandwich, and didn't give 2 shits about it. You think that's true? Or do you think today Jordan Mailata wants a piece of Myles Garrett? I think Garrett's banged up a little bit. That's not how these practices work, my friends. That's not how that works. You're constantly with the eye in the sky watching you. Why would they tape it if they didn't care? Not going over what it takes to be a champion with people who don't understand that champions practice a lot and take it serious. Okay? Mailata's not getting soft. He's playing against a Hall of Fame player. Myles Garrett's going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's a Canton man. He'll be in Canton. Okay? He's a Canton guy. If that were me and I was Jordan Mailata, I'd want to line up against him every single practice I could possibly get. You know why? Because it's very few times that I'm going to be playing against somebody with that skill. And that guy is way better than the guy in Dallas. Sway goes, it's Myles Garrett. Relax. Jeez. Obviously, he didn't hear what I just said. If I get beat by him and I continue to get beat by a guy like that, he's preparing me for the season. Yeah, it's okay. Okay? Don't worry about it. It's only practice. You don't have to worry about it. Eagle fans, you guys are so confident. Nakobe's ready. Everybody's ready. You guys are, it's all good. Don't worry about it. You guys will be 17-0. Don't worry about it. You got it covered. Okay. Let's get into Jordan Davis here. How many people believe if Jordan Davis is not the starter this year at the 13th pick in the draft, that he, by the end of the year, if he is not the majority of the game starter, that he has been, I don't want to use the word bust, but that they overestimated who he is, and they did not evaluate him correctly. If he doesn't start this year, by the way, I can't wait to hear this one. If he doesn't start the majority of the games, he could get nicked up. Some other guys could start. Okay. If he doesn't start the majority of the games, would he be a disappointment to you? I'm with you, Sills. Overvalued. They need Dean to work on covering Chubb. That's exactly 5573. That'd be a phenomenal thing for Dean to do. It was the 13th pick. I know. Okay. I wrote down some of the numbers of first-year defensive tackles that you guys have drafted over the years. And let me start here. Let's start with Jerome. Jerome played 12 games in 87 because of the strike. Jerome had 50 tackles in 12 games. 50. Don't let them agitate you, Sills. Remember, they're delusional. That's a learning experience for Jordan. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a good one. Jerome Brown didn't start a lot of the games. Had 50 tackles, 40 solo, 4 sacks in 12 games. Let's go to Corey Simon. These are rookie seasons for players you drafted in the first round at defensive tackle. Corey Simon, 52 tackles, 38 solo, 9.5 sacks in his rookie year. Let me say that again. Corey Simon, 52 tackles, 38 solo. 38 solo. 9.5 quarterback sacks out of Florida State. Fletcher Cox, 39 tackles, 32 solo, 5.5. Louisville says, I've been saying Milton Williams will get more starts. Jordan Davis in 13 games. 18 tackles, 8 solo, no sacks. What's different there from Jordan to those other guys? Those other guys are active. He's not. Jerome didn't start, had a strike. Corey had almost 10 sacks his rookie year. Still hall pass here when you're the 13th pick. There's no hall pass. End of the day here, here's who he is and will always be. He'll be a Vita Veda, a Wolfwork. He'll help the other players. They overdrafted him. It's okay. He's a good player. You don't cut him. He's not Derek Barnett, who's a complete meathead. This guy's a player. He's good. He'll be effective in your run game. Vince Wilfork wasn't a 3-down lineman. He was a 2-down lineman. He's going to be considered for the Hall of Fame. Okay? They're going to consider him for the Hall of Fame. I don't give a shit what shape. He's not a productive player. It doesn't matter what kind of shape he is. By the way, to tell you why that doesn't matter, and to give you a little bit of solace in the fact that Jordan Davis was out of shape, Mazi Smith is severely out of shape with the Cowboys. That guy, there's not a chance in hell he could play 35 plays in a game. There's not a chance. That guy came to camp with the Cowboys so out of shape that he has 2 flash plays. So it's not just Jordan Davis. These kids that come out of these programs that have a lot of rotation, they're not physically prepared to play in the National Football League. And because of these stupid-ass OTAs and that ridiculous CBA, the majority of these rookie defensive tackles that are coming into camp are not ready to play. It's a league-wide issue. It's not a Jordan Davis issue. It's a league. I watched more tape on Mazi Smith. He's strong. He doesn't have a very good get-off right now because he's out of shape. To me, he looked like Jordan Davis a year ago. And this guy went to Michigan. These guys are not ready to play today. That's why that guy, Aiden Hutchinson, who's an effort player, you know why he was ready to play? His dad played. His dad told him, you got to be in shape, man. Dude, you got to be in superstar condition to play in that league. Okay? Hey, Seals, how long an average does it take to develop a defensive tackle in the NFL? I don't think very long. I don't think very long. I think it takes forever to develop a great O-lineman. The great O-linemen, you notice, they're all in their mid-30s. Look at all the great O-linemen. Very rarely do you have guys early on. Those are the Hall of Famers that are dominant early in their careers, like Will Shields, Mike Munchak, guys like that. Zach Martin. Very rarely do you see a 26, 27-year-old kid who's the best OG or OT in the league, because the technique is so much more complicated and more complex. A defensive guy, wind him up and watch him run in the walls. You usually see him right away. Like for me, watch this. I only need to see about 10 feet of film on Jalen Carter to tell you that this kid's got every tool. Now it's just going to be about being in shape and recognizing formations, techniques, and splits. He's got to do the nuances of the game, which means the chalkboard of the game. That's all he has to do. He has to be a student of the game now because he has all the intangibles. So he just has to he has to play. Continue to get your reps, okay? And again, I'm not talking about repping him out 20 reps, 25, 30 reps against Cleveland. I'm not talking that. Then again, Cleveland has some pretty good O-linemen, and it's probably the third best or second best O-line next to Baltimore and Detroit. Those are your best O-lines. Your best O-lines are Philly, Baltimore, Detroit, Cleveland. Those are great O-lines. Dallas kind of coming up the rear a little bit. There are some players on that O-line. Pretty good offensive line. Okay? Dolphins are getting better. So, to me, I think it takes 2 years for a D lineman, and you start to see it. Because most of the guys, when you have a great D tackle, you see a Dominic Sue with 10 tackles in his rookie year. And you see it. Fletcher Cox, he didn't play a bunch of the snaps his rookie year. He still had 5.5 sacks. Fletcher's an athlete. Fletcher is an athlete. He's a 3 technique, 1 technique, 0 technique. See, the hidden gem with him, you could play him at end, tackle, nose. You can't do that with everybody. You see what they're trying to do with Jordan Davis? They're trying to get him in space to see if he can use some of that speed. But you know what he does? He stops his feet. I've talked to Tracy about this numerous times. Move your feet, son. See, he thinks because he's so athletic and he's 350 pounds that he's going to manhandle guys. You're not doing that in the NFL. You're not. How can a guy like Dwight Freeney at 6 feet have 20 sacks in a season? Because he moves his feet. He gets around the edges, uses leverage. Fletcher's just not Davis is just not a very good, technically sound, skillful pass rusher. He's not. It's okay. You know, you can keep working him and keep working at it, and you should keep working at it. But what they should be focusing on is 0 technique, 1 technique. You see, what they're realizing now is they're trying to figure out a way to maximize that 13th pick. I think they're making a mistake. He'll never be able to play defensive end and set the edge. I would run the ball at him playing DE every play. You're not going to stop top flight running backs from getting outside on you or screen passes. I don't give a shit how good he is. He's not going to set the edge. He's an interior tackle. He's an interior inside DT. And again, this is not a rip, but they need to realize who he is. And what they're doing is they're fighting it a little bit. They're fighting it. Okay? Embrace it. He's not a bust. No one's saying that. But because they got enamored with the combine. Man, the combine, if the combine was the number one end all, I think it's the biggest joke on the planet. You know why the combine's the biggest joke on the planet? Almost every single drill you do at the combines, you will never do in your NFL career ever again. So you prepare for that thing. You're not running shuttle drills and practice. You're not even running 40s. You're not doing any of that. You're not doing vertical jumps. You do that one time in your career. You prepare for that. It's like going to a Gold's Gym. That's all it is. If I wanted guys that were great and muscle-bound guys and guys that were fast, I'd go to a gymnasium. I want to go to a film room and see production. We're going to get Dave Wannstedt on, the owner of 3 Super Bowl rings. He's the guy that recruited Aaron Donald. He'll tell you. Okay? Don goes like this. See, Don takes what I just said that I'm hoping that he fails. I am not in any way hoping he fails. I'm hoping to get through many of you out there who he is and who he's not. I said this on day one of the draft. He's about 23rd, somewhere down in there, 23, 25. He's going to be a 2-down guy, and he's going to be a guy that you're going to be happy you got because he's in the run game. Well, they moved up to 13. Severely overdrafted. Okay, it's okay. He'll be productive for you guys. He's going to help Jalen Carter a lot. And by the way, I'm not going to quantify my take here on Jordan Davis to make you feel better about yourselves. You need to understand who he is. Okay? All I'm saying, these other guys came on in their rookie years, and they were productive. I don't know about you, but Jerome played on a pretty good defense, don't you think? Gang Green? Corey was on a pretty good football team, wasn't he? Had 9.5 sacks his rookie year. Fletcher, 40 tackles, 5.5 sacks. I don't know. Jordan Davis, 18 tackles, 8 solo, nothing. He's not productive. These other guys are productive tackles. These guys are active with their hands. They know how to make plays. They're TFL monsters. These are elite dudes. Jordan's not an elite playmaker. Plain and simple. So, if you lower your expectations, you might be happier with him. The guy that you need to have the high expectations are on Jalen Carter, because he has the skill set to make plays. Okay? Skill set to make plays. Okay? So, yeah, and again, that guy Mozzie Smith, severely out of shape. Cowboys think they have a gold mine in that kid. He ain't playing more than 20 plays. Guy's fat and out of shape. Has not prepared himself. Okay? All right. You know, Bear, I hate to use that term. He's a plug because it makes him sound non-essential and non-essential personnel. When you go like this, he's a plug. That's not really. I mean, look, I'll tell you what I like about him. Maybe I should do that. What I like about him is usually a guy who's a plug is 6 feet, 6'1", 300 pounds, but this guy is enormous and moves like a 6'1", 6'2" guy. I think it's in his hands. Tracy and I were talking about it, and he goes like this. Is it feet? I go, it's his feet. He stops him. And he's not very active with his hands. He's got to be more. When you watch Aaron Donald play, okay, and you watch Aaron Donald play, watch how active he is with his hands. He's slapping those hands off, getting them around you. He doesn't want you to touch him at all. He's playing angles. He's on a technique. He's on a 3. Aaron Donald never rushes you head up. Watch Jordan Davis, how he rushes. He gets right into the middle of the guy, which automatically means he's beat. See, fly goes rip and swim, okay? That's a technique where you're on the perimeter of the guard, on the shoulder, outside shoulder. He doesn't do that. He runs right into the middle of the blocker, and the blocker wins that as soon as he gets head up on a guard. He's blocked. He's blocked. You have 2 seconds to make that decision. And sometimes these good guards, they'll take a wide stance. Get out there wide. And you got to come back inside. You've got to have multiple moves. And I don't think he possesses that talent. I just don't think he possesses. Jalen Carter recognizes that. Got quick hands, long. I'll tell you something about Carter too that I didn't realize. Long ass arms. Like, I mean, this guy's built like he's Elton Brand. I mean, he's got long arms, plays on a perimeter, gets inside, pushes the guys around. Great lower base. I mean, everything you want in a tackle, 3 technique, you got it in that guy. But what the Eagles are doing right now, they're fooling themselves. They're fooling themselves by thinking, well, maybe he'll be. Have you ever seen a defensive lineman that came out of college who wasn't productive in college turn out to be a Hall of Fame tackle? I'm trying to think. Randy White was exceptionally productive. Won the Outland Lombardi. I don't ever remember a guy who had like very limited tackles and didn't do anything and then went on to have 60, 70 tackles a year, 10, 15 sacks. Dominic Sue was a star at Nebraska. Jerome was a star at Miami. Corey Simon was a star at Florida State. Shit, Fletcher was a star at Ole Miss. These guys were star productive players. Very rarely do you see a guy with 9 sacks in 50 games almost and come in and go, well, he's going to be a 10-sack guy. You fell in love with the combines. That's the biggest. Hey, do you know what the NFL combines are today to me? They're absolutely fool's gold. It's just fool's gold. You watch a guy run these drills and you watch these guys do all these and you go like this. Wow, what an athlete. What's that got to do with playing football? Most of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the sport are like horrible athletes. I mean, look, who's a better athlete, Vic or Brady? Who's a better, right? Vic or Brady? Who would you take as an athlete? Man, that's a dumb question, right? Think about that. Think what I just said. Who is a better athlete? Michael Vick or Tom Brady? Vic. Well, who'd you want as a quarterback to win a game? Brady. It's two different people. Same thing in the NFL. Same thing in the NFL. I want a football player. Athlete? You're hoping. You're hoping. Okay? You're hoping. Chuck, I'd even say this. You think Peyton Manning was a great athlete? I wouldn't put Peyton Manning. Okay? All right. I want to get to the Browns. It's funny. I hear people posting, well, the Eagles lost to the Browns in practice. This is where I will agree with some of you guys. One-loss records in practice? Okay. The only thing I don't ever want to hear is that the Browns had better effort than the Eagles. And that, I don't think that will ever happen. What did I see? Something about a ridiculous 6-2 in the postseason or preseason since they're, I mean, those are dumb. No one gives a shit about that. And I agree with people who say, dude, 6-2? Where did you get that? How'd you come up with that metric? Where in the world did you come up with that metric that Sirianni 6-2 in organized practices? How did you come up with that? What is that metric exactly? It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Again, the only thing I don't want to hear is that the Browns had better effort and those guys didn't practice hard. That I don't want to hear. Because then you're like some of the guys in here that think practice is, it doesn't matter. It's funny, isn't it? They have an entire exhibition season. They have all these organized team practices. The NFL teams thinks it matters. But there's Eagle fans in here that go, who cares? That's the difference. While you sit in the stands and those guys are on the field. Because they do take that shit serious. Okay? So that's the only thing. And Cleveland is good. There's a bunch of talented players out there. Okay? There's a bunch of talented players on Cleveland. Let's look at the Browns. 2023 Cleveland Browns. How many people think this football team is a postseason team? How many people think, in a very tight AFC, how many people think that this football team is a playoff team? Or how about this? They have a playoff roster. Okay? Do the Browns have a playoff roster? All Eagles, joint practice and joint practices means nothing when game one starts. It's when it matters. The effort you put into practice matters. They have a solid team. They can make it with that roster for sure. I think they're pretty close to being a roster like the 49er roster. I think the Browns have a good football team. I do. Here's my assessment. A little bit of last year and right now, okay? 7-10 a year ago in 2022, as we said. There was a built-in distraction immediately once the 200. There were actually two built-in distractions for the Browns last year, okay? If the Browns were in the NFC, they would challenge for the number 1 seed. That's tone. Absolutely. I mean, it was 2 built-in distractions. One, when you gave the $230 million guaranteed with an unprecedented contract, and then who you gave it to, and Deshaun Watson. Automatically, he was going to have to try to not drown. This guy was out in the middle of the ocean with no buoy or nothing, and he was treading water the entire time. So the whole season a year ago, it began in a disaster before it even started. So, I mean, there was really no chance for it to have any good outcome. What you were just doing was hoping to survive. Okay? You're just hoping to survive. Jim Schwartz is the new defensive coordinator. They brought a couple new coordinators in. Bubba Ventori, who is a really great special teams coach. I wish the Eagles had gotten him. Browns would be first in the NFC West. Maniac. I agree. I mean, Bubba Ventori being added to the special teams as a special teams coordinator, I think that's an upgrade. Jim Schwartz, now the new DC, means this. They're going to be aggressive, but they're going to be more guardrails. When you have a Jim Schwartz defensive system and a scheme, he's not going to let you freelance back there in the secondary. That's not what he does. He has a very controlled and a very structured system. You have to play in. There's not a lot of leeway. Like, there's no roaming around in a Jim Schwartz defense. Everybody's got their job. He demands everybody to be in their place. He demands everybody to have technique. And one of the most important things that he does is that he makes sure everyone knows everyone else's responsibility, because knowing everybody else's responsibility gives you an advantage on setting the edge and making sure that you're not out of position. The more you know about what the scheme is and what everybody's job out there is, the better of a captain you could be of your own ship. There's a reason that there's a captain. He knows everyone else's job. Well, what they're looking to do is they're looking to get players out there that know everybody's responsibility. Okay? And that's what Schwartz is looking for. Now that they have a quarterback, they've been searching for a quarterback. Yeah, I agree. And let me get into this now. And again, like I said, the 2022 season for the Browns was set up for disaster immediately. It was just set up for a disaster. This is the team that they'll be playing on Thursday, the Eagles. Let me tell you this about Kevin Stefanski. I think he struggled. Well, if you go back and you watch him and how he built that offense, especially when Watson came back, they had trouble spreading it out. They had problems moving the ball around. He struggled as a coordinator, I thought, a year ago, and getting that offense in sequence. Because you know what he is? What he doesn't understand, in my opinion, is that they're a run-first team. When you got a guy like Nick Chubb back there running the ball, you need to set that up on play action and make sure that your offense is in third and short by winning first and second down. I thought they did a poor job at trying to win first and second down. They had the talent. You know, Watson comes back after week 13. It wobbled around for a little bit. But you know what was, at the end of the day, what was a positive for the Browns? They ended up 3-3 in the AFC. So they were riding the ship. Okay? They were riding the ship as the season went. If they had more time, they would have continued to get better and better and better. And Watson was getting better and better and better. So, okay. Jim Schwartz, as I said, is the new coordinator. You're going to have more ability to be able to be aggressive. They added that DT, Dalvin Tomlinson. I got to tell you something, man. Andrew Berry, the general manager that was in Philadelphia, has done a whale of a job. I think Cleveland is a really good football team. They just got to go out and do it. They're kind of like the Lions. They're good, dude. That's a good team. And so when you hear during these practices that some of the Eagle guys are getting beat and some of the Cleveland Brown guys are getting beat, this is a pretty good matchup. This should be a good football game. If the Browns and the Eagles were to play a regular season game, what would the point spread be? In Philly? Three? In Cleveland? 1.5? Cleveland would be an underdog? Okay? That's how good they are. Like, that Browns team could beat the Chiefs. They could beat the Chiefs. They got all the components to beat them. Look at Steve, 14. No, that's how many sacks Mulata gave up. Hoss, you couldn't beat the Redskins. How does Watson look throwing the ball? Pretty good, Yale. Yeah, a lot comfortable. Yeah, I thought a year ago that Stefanski struggled a bit. I did. I thought he struggled a bit in spreading it around a little. I thought he really did not get that team out and good perimeter. Now, Amari Cooper ended up with 1,000 yards receiving. So their skill set at the perimeter. But they need to run that ball more. Okay? They need to run it. And like you said, if the Browns were in the NFC, they'd win home field advantage. They'd win 14 games. Not a problem with that. Not a problem. They're a good football. I mean, look, they have maybe the best defensive edge rusher in the league. They got maybe the best offensive guard in the National Football League. They got maybe the best running back in the NFL next to the guy in Tennessee. They got a quarterback who was out a bit, still down the stretch, went 3-3. Is the paper bag on the head era over with the Browns? Barring any kind of injuries, I think the Browns are going to be a contender for the AFC. Yes. Devin goes, would I pick them over the Eagles in a game? No. I said that I would say they'd be 3-point underdogs, the Browns in Lincoln Financial, and I think the Browns would be 1.5 underdogs at home. Okay? I think they'd be you still have to prove to me you can win games like that against a team like Philly. See, the Browns have talent, but that doesn't necessarily mean I believe you can beat other teams with talent. Like, that's what I say about the Eagles. You beat all the shitty teams that you beat in front of you, but when you line up against good quarterbacks, you don't win. That's been a trend for 2 years with you. I could put down on a list 10 quarterbacks that are considered some of the top quarterbacks, and you have a losing record versus them. And the 2 years that Sirianni's been there, I could put down a list that you were beaten him by. Okay? Browns have to beat Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Well, let's see what Cincinnati looks like, especially in the secondary and especially at the safety position. I'll get to Dalvin Cook being with the Jets. That pushes them up the ladder a little bit. I mean, he's 1,100-yard back and only 220 carries. There's not a lot of tread on his tire, man. Okay? Not a lot of tread. He doesn't carry the ball like the guy in Tennessee. The guy in Tennessee carries the ball 375 times a year. That guy in Minnesota carried it like 210, 220 as an average for his years up there. Wasn't a ton of carries. Okay. A list of last three. No, I said Sirianni's last 2 years. That first year, you didn't beat one quarterback worth of shit. Second year, the second year you beat Rodgers and you beat, I'll say Trevor. Then who else? Who else? In 2 years, you've beaten Trevor and Aaron, and the rest of them have beaten you. So, which teams have the quarterback we need to beat? Well, we're going to see those this year, KC, because you're going to have a stretch of them. Allen, Mahomes, Dak. Can't beat Dak. You got to beat him first, too. How is that the Eagles' fault? It's not a fault. It's a fact. Okay? You think Brock Purdy's elite? Oh, based off what? And look at Quan. Quan keeps laughing at Dak. Well, beat him then. Then you can laugh. Beat him. You can laugh then, Quan. Beat him. And I'll agree with you. Till that point comes, you're lying to people and yourself. Beat him. You go 2-0 against the Cowboys this year. Great shot. You make it back to the Super Bowl. Okay? They were usually up big in the second half. No need to throw the ball. I don't know what that means. Dak is a bum. His own teammates know it. That bum beats you. You know what's funny? A guy like Quan or other people who don't like Dak, you guys can make all that shit up. I'll just go 8-3. 5 TDs a year ago. 400 yards in the air against your second-ranked defense. Jalen doesn't play defense. You can say whatever you want. Dak schools you until you stop him. Jeffy goes, Chiefs? When have you beaten the Chiefs? We're 2-0 against you. And in your own barn. Dak's a bum who loses to bums. Make it make sense. Easy. 8-3, owns you. And if they get into a title game against you, you think you have better odds of beating the Cowboys when you haven't? That's why I said if the Cowboys get to the NFC Championship game, I don't care if it's at Lincoln Financial or in Arlington, they'll beat you. Until you prove otherwise. This is not about fortune telling. This is about looking at what people have accomplished, who they are, what they've done, where they're going. You could sit here on today's date and make shit up all you want. I'm just going to spew facts. I didn't tell you the Cowboys win critical games, but the Cowboys beat you. And if they get you in a critical game, they'll beat you because they do beat you. Now, could the Cowboys lose in the divisional round? Totally. They get you in a playoff game, they'll beat you until proven otherwise. I make shit up all day long. You see that what he says? What did I say was a lie? Do the Eagles lose to the Cowboys when Dak is quarterbacking? Yes or no? Yes or no? Does he usually have a career game against you? Yes or no? That's not making anything up. Look at the numbers. I'm so bored with pulling the numbers up, I'm not. Like I've told you before about your team, you're built for the long haul. The Cowboys are built to beat the Eagles. And until you beat that team, Look at what, hey, Micah goes, I'm cherry picking. No. Since Dick Vermeil has said this when he first took over the Philadelphia Eagles, Philly has to beat Dallas. They have to beat Dallas. That has not changed. That has not changed. Dalvin Cook, I want to hit on that. Also, your coordinators. I want to hit on that. I think it's important because I heard something today from a very experienced coach that I totally want to hit on, and it's important here. Guys, we are so looking forward to being part of our great friends. By the way, the two owners of the Hooters and King of Prussia text me today, and I think we're going to get one of them on this week, and we're looking forward to it. The official home of the National Football League is King of Prussia. However, with all the 7 locations, this is the 40th anniversary of Hooters, and we're so proud to be involved with Hooters almost the entire time. Make sure you go to northeasthooters.com to find one of the 7 locations nearest you for you to be able to have yourself one whale of a time. Now, look, if you're getting your draft party together and your drafts together for your fantasy league, this is your one-stop place. Reserve a chair, reserve a table, because they are going fast. And with all the football we got coming up now, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, this is your one-stop place with all the great action for football and the official home of all Eagle fans. The iconic Hooter girls are there for you. They're going to serve you there Tuesdays. One of the great things that we have on Tuesdays, buy 10 wings and you get 10 boneless wings free. Wings Wednesday. How about this? All you can eat. It's a 40-year tradition, 1983. You'll absolutely love that. How about this? Fried pickles. 6 items, $6. Simple as that. We got a list of appearances that we're going to be doing at King of Prussia. Make sure you take a look at it over at Dan Sileo Show on my Twitter page. Please go over and take a look at it. And for the 7 locations, northeasthooters.com. Find that location nearest you. When you go into any one of the Hooters, do me a favor. Tell them Big Sil sent you.